We're live, Michael, so you can start anytime.
All right, so I'll go ahead and begin, and we'll just let Councilor Swearingen join in when she is ready. Well, welcome everybody. I'm going to call this meeting to order now at 4:01. We are such a timely group. Awesome. Let's see, looking around, it looks like all of our commissioners are here today. And if there's anybody who has any additions or changes to our agenda at this point? Ben or Stacy, do you have anything? Nope. Okay. And I just want to say welcome to all of our visitors here today. Appreciate you guys coming in. That's great to participate. So we're going to go ahead and vote then. Do I have a motion for adopting the agenda?
I'll motion. Go ahead.
Okay. I think it was Stacy, and then maybe
It was. She beat me.
All right. And then Ben, do you want to second that then?
I'll second, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. And then did you guys have a chance to go over the minutes? Obviously, we had a pretty, we had a pretty involved meeting last time around. Did you guys notice anything in the minutes that you thought we ought to adjust or change in any way? Okay, I would entertain a motion for that as well, adopting that as well.
I'll motion to approve the minutes from last week.
All right, thank you, Mr. Peters.
I'll second.
Awesome. Thank you, Stacy. Appreciate it. All right. Then let us, we'll have to vote on that one. All those, oh, Kelly, did you have anything that you needed to change to the agenda or anything from the minutes? No, okay. All right, so now we're just voting to adopt the minutes. Or to accept the minutes anyway. So anyway, everybody ready? Let's see, we'll just vote. I'm gonna just go around. I think sometimes that's easier. And on my screen, Ben, you're first, so.
Aye.
Ben, Stace?
Aye.
Kelly?
Aye.
Okay. All right, moving on. We have three public hearings today. The first one on the agenda is the Paddock Kintop conditional use permit request. And I see that we have Tom here right now. Welcome, Tom.
Hi there.
Did we get anything, Mr. Roth, in terms of letters of anything either way on that one? We did.
We did, in the packet, you did have one
The one, yeah.
email that did comment on this item, strongly supporting the conditional use permit. That's from Dave and Virginia Hahn.
Yeah. Okay, I did see that. Yeah.
And then Patrick, I'm not sure if we received two other public comments, but I don't know if they were in regards to this item or not.
They are one is and one's for the other item.
Okay.
Do you want me to read?
I think we should read that into the record first. Yeah.
Okay. So this is from Mary Sanders. Both Douglas Sanders and I, who reside at 404 East 2nd Avenue, realize the need for long-term housing in Grand Marais, and we also support the conversion of the Bally House B&B to a 5-unit small apartment dwelling. We would expect the conditional use permit to include terms for adequate off-street parking for the residents, a requirement that should be easy to meet.
Okay. Very good.
And do you want me to read the other one, or?
I guess my thought is to read it when we take up that next item.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. All right. So, councilors, you've had an opportunity to read things over, and any questions you might have, and I'll ask Tom if he has any statements he wants to make first. Tom, do you have a statement you'd like to make first before we start chatting?
Just other than, thanks for looking at our proposal. We are super excited if we're allowed to do this. Looking forward to our move to Grand Marais, and we hope that we can fill a niche.
Awesome. Well, we're glad to have you. Thanks, Tom. Okay, so commissioners, any thoughts or questions that you might have since Tom is obviously here? Anything that came up for you in this? Ben or Stacy or Kelly? Anything? Nope. Really? Come on, Stacy. Really?
I am just excited that we have this opportunity in front of us. Yes.
Me too. Awesome. Yeah, we are looking for that. All right. Thank you, Stacy. Kelly, I take it you're down with this as well?
Yeah, I didn't have any issue. I just wanted to make sure, and they addressed it about parking because we have obviously more people there. The property provides for that. That was my only concern. So
Yep.
I'm excited, and
We'll have assigned
Hope that
parking for each resident. They'll have their own spot. So, and we're call out in our lease that, off-street, on-street parking, on-street storage isn't allowed except within rules, the rules of the city and so on. So we'll make sure that's very clear.
Okay.
And so our zoning ordinance will require 5 off-street parking for the 5-unit apartment. That we don't have parking requirements in our commercial zone, but we do in our residential zone. And it's 1 per unit in an apartment building. So there's plenty of space on the property for that.
Yep, it'll be 4 rental units, and then we're residing in the rear of the house, the owner's, what we call the owner's suite, but so it'll be 4 units for rental. And they will have each, like I said, assigned parking space.
Yeah.
And then you'll have parking for your unit as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's plenty of room.
Awesome. All right, great. Well, seeing that, so looking over our findings here, so it seems like we are looking at really moving to a more conforming designation here in the R1. So I would say that it's definitely falling within lines of what we would like to see. Obviously, it's compatible. It's been there. It has been, run as a B&B, but switching it over, to my mind, at least, it doesn't seem like a huge deal, but a great benefit. And yeah, it's obviously not going to impede our normal development there. It is, making our R1 even stronger, which I appreciate. And it is obviously desirable at this point. So I think within our findings, we've met all those for sure. So I would entertain a motion at this point.
I will make the motion to approve the conditional use permit for Ballet House to be a 5-unit small apartment. 4-unit. Sorry, I think.
All right.
Right.
I think 5 is probably more accurate because the owners.
Okay. R1, yes.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Stacy. Do we have a second?
I will second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Swearengin. Appreciate that. All right. So we will then call the roll here. So, Mr. Ben, your vote?
Aye.
And Stacy?
Aye.
And Kelly?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Motion passes, or permit is given. All right, so now we're going to move on. Do we have, is anybody here for Susan or Sue Westerland? Nope. We have our group. Okay. Very good. So, counselors, I presume that you all have probably gone by this property a number of times and you probably know where it is. Hopefully you've all had an opportunity to have a look-see. I walked over there the other day and walked it and looked it over, and to my mind, it seemed that it's definitely fitting in with the character of Broadway there. And although it is going over the line a bit, it did seem that, in fact, like right on that property, there's no sidewalk there. Like there's a sidewalk up north of there, but not right in front of that particular house. So to my mind, it seemed fair enough to permit that. Did you have any thoughts, Kelly?
My only question was if we had, I know the setback limit for the north property, it was 7 feet. I just didn't know if we had any commentary from that property owner at all. I didn't see anything. I haven't received anything. I just wanted to verify.
Patrick, the other comment wasn't about this item.
No.
So we didn't receive any other comments regarding this item.
Okay.
All right.
Then I don't have an issue.
Yeah. All right. And then in this instance, it does seem that, again, we're looking at something that is falling in line with what we would like to see in our community. Obviously, the people taking care of their houses, and in terms of how that neighborhood looks, it seems like it's going to fit right in. And it's obviously reasonable to have a deck, since there was a deck there previously. This one will be slightly larger, but not actually that much larger than the original. So I'm inclined to permit this. Do I have a motion?
A motion to approve the Westerland variance.
Awesome, thank you, Ben. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Stacey. All right, I'll call the roll. Ms. Peters
Aye.
and Stacy
Aye.
and Kelly.
Aye. Sorry, guys, I'm having computer issues.
And I'm an aye as well. So the variance has been approved. Awesome. So now I believe we do have a letter for this particular rezoning request. So Patrick, do you want to just go ahead and read that?
Yep.
Great.
This is Robin Derscheid of Grand Marais. I'm of the opinion that Hamilton Habitat's request to rezone the north 320 feet of 615 East Highway 61 needs to be denied at this time and brought back to table after we know their intentions regarding that parcel. As to how many units and the type of units should they decide to buy that parcel. Thank you.
I can understand that type of concern, but I think it's important to note that the request to rezone can't be made contingent on we're not looking at a development proposal here. I think that she has been pretty clear about what her intentions are in the application materials. But if you were to rezone this to R1, then a person could do anything that's legally allowed in the zoning of R1. So she wouldn't be required to only do what she has told us she intends to do. As a matter of fact, what she intends to do is, I think, significantly less intense than what would be allowed in the R1 zoning on that property. So I just want to point that out.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Roth. So, commissioners, any other thoughts? Kelly, you're unmuted.
She's frozen.
Okay. All right. All right. Sounds good. Let's see, Stacy, how about you? Do you have any thoughts or questions?
No, but I really would like to hear from Anna. I would just like
Oh, yeah.
to hear her perspective of all this.
Okay, awesome.
Am I
Mr.
on?
Mr. Peters, oh, hold on, Anna, I'll get right to you. I just want to get through the commissioners first. Peters, do you have anything?
I don't. I guess I'd like to. Yeah, I think I would just like to defer to Anna and hear what she plans to do, and it seems pretty straightforward to me.
All right. Well, you're up there.
The property is long and narrow. However, it would allow 6 homes based on the it's an acre, and based on the new zoning, I could get more than 4 homes in there. That is not my intention. My intention is to put 4 homes in there because I want everybody to have some space and a yard and some privacy. That's simply my intention, is just to build 4 like-kind homes. Same model as I've been doing, because financially they work for me. I don't know so much about this year, but
Right.
yeah. So they would be 16 by 40.
Okay.
And the access would be off of 5th. It would not be through Jim's property. That would be a closed, right now there's a road that goes through the property. I'm going to try to use the existing road that's through the property to get water, sewer, and electric in, and have 2 homes on each side of this road. That's it. Pretty simple.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I do have one question, Anna. In your application, there was a question that was not answered. And I just wanted to know if you care to answer it at this point. I can read the question to you.
Please.
And, yeah, and I'll actually cut it down to the simplest way to say it. But anyway, facts showing that a mistake has been made in the original zoning, which was inconsistent with the comprehensive or land use plan, which should now be corrected along with the zoning, or substantial changes have occurred since the adoption of the comprehensive or land use plan, which should result in the plans and the zoning being amended.
Yeah, all that was over my head. That's why I didn't answer that. That was so confusing and so full of words that it's like, I didn't see, I don't know what it said before. I have no idea without doing some research, and I wasn't willing to do that, to be perfectly honest.
Okay.
I don't think there was an error made anywhere. It was just zone commercial, and I want to zone it residential.
Yeah, that if you don't have to make those cases for us. It's just your opportunity to, if you have some thoughts to include.
I don't.
If you were going to commissioners try to answer this one, I don't think you could find that there was an error made, like Anna said. But you'd have to find instead that substantial changes have occurred, and pretty clearly one of the substantial changes that's occurred since this was zoned commercial is the demand for housing. So that's I think you can go that direction pretty easily.
Yeah. I have that. I just wanted to give Anna an opportunity to take that. But yeah, that's sort of the direction that I'm going in as well. Do any of you commissioners have questions? Go ahead, Stacey.
Yes, I do. I certainly appreciate what Anna has done for housing in our community, and I do support this change. I do want to make sure that I know this is not her intention, but we changed this to R1 district. Is there any chance any of those homes can be sold and become short-term rentals?
No, everything that we do is deed restricted. And so it clearly states in the deed, and deeds carry with the land, that they can't be rented either residentially or vacation rental in any capacity.
Okay, and I was wondering, we can't enforce that when we make this change, I'm guessing. So I'm wondering, in our current zoning, does it allow for short-term rental in this area?
No.
If it's zoned as it's currently zoned, it does allow for it.
Right.
So a person could build exactly what Anna's talking about building, and you wouldn't be allowed to use it residentially today, but you could do vacation rentals out of them.
Correct.
When it's changed to residential, it'll just swap that around, and you will be able to live in them, but you would not be able to do vacation rentals.
Okay, that's what I just wanted to verify. We change it to R1, that takes away that short-term rental. Okay, just wanted to make sure I was thinking correctly.
That's okay.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Commissioner Swearingen, did you have anything? No?
No, I'm excited for what Anna's doing. You know, I know that it's, I think a little bit 20 years down the road, what happens now when right now it's a commercial area. We kind of have some commercial businesses in there, but there is a mixture of commercial along with residential. So I think that there's room for both. And obviously, if people are buying homes in the area and looking at them, they see what's around them. You know, it's a chance for people to get into a home. Maybe someday, 5 years, 10 years down the road, they want to sell it and move into something bigger, something on a lake, something with a bigger yard. So that was my only concern at first when I first read it is, hey, what about commercial in case things want to expand? We always could, even though we don't have the workers, we could use a commercial industry here. But I think that that can be answered down the road. And so I'm excited for what Anna's doing. I'm especially excited for what she's doing over on 4th Avenue West. But that's another story.
You gotta see that. That one's sweet.
I can't wait. So no, I don't have any concerns.
Okay. Sounds great. Mr. Peters, anything?
No, it all looks really good.
Okay.
And I appreciate that you're not going to necessarily take advantage of the new ordinances, even though you could. 6 would be better than 4. But I appreciate leaving space for rooms and neighbors and families. So
I don't want it to look like the hood. Unfortunately, the last one we just sold, you know, the guy didn't have a lot of experience with home ownership, and right now it looks like he's in the hood. And I think that maybe I'm going to try to integrate some classes, even if I put them on, just about home ownership. I know that the last guy had to go through some of that for his financing. And my sister tells me to stay out of it because it's not my house, but it's such a cute house and all of his stuff is right in the front yard, you know. So
we do that here.
I know it.
I think it's awesome, Anna, because I think that's part, I know probably Mike Roth has heard me talk a lot about being a good neighbor. And I think when people have neighbors, you know, we all say, well, it's my property. I should get to do what I want with it. I'm a taxpayer. And to a certain degree, I agree with that. But I also think that when you move into a neighborhood, there comes a responsibility to your neighbors and the people who are around you. And it's a respect issue as well. And sometimes people don't learn that growing up. It depends upon, you know, what you had or what your experiences have been. So if you are willing to talk to people about that, and whether it's a class, whether it's a booklet, a letter, whatever, I think it's great that we can all encourage people to be good neighbors to one another and be respectful. So I appreciate that effort.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, right on. Okay, commissioners, we're moving on here. Much quicker than I had anticipated.
Well, good. Let me throw a wrench in the works for you then.
Oh man, I knew you.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But I mean, first of all, Anna, we're lucky to have you, and thanks for all that you're doing on housing. You are our #1 housing developer right now, no doubt about it.
That's funny.
This property, though, is a tricky spot because it's in the middle of 2 actively being used commercial, well, 3 if you consider the one that's being split from commercial properties. And one of the quirks of our ordinance that is really designed to protect residential from commercial uses says that in the CI zone, we would enforce a 50-foot setback from residential zoned parcels. And what that means is the folks directly to the west and directly to the east will now have buildings inside of the setback that we've just created. Now, those buildings will be legally non-conforming, but they'll be non-conforming, and it'll just put a few more difficulties on those lots to develop commercially in the future. Difficulties that could be dealt with through a variance process, but difficulties nonetheless. And it's one of the reasons why it's hard to kind of cut a piece out of the middle of a zone like this.
Yeah.
There's actually laws against doing it in a more extreme way where we call that spot zoning. That's not what this is, because you can see right across the street there's residentially zoned and residentially used property. And you don't have to go very far away from this one on this side of the road to find residentially used property as well. So, I mean, you can certainly continue to make the case that it's appropriate to rezone this residential. We didn't hear from the neighbors, but I doubt the neighbors know specifically what's happening to their property rights by this rezoning happening.
Right.
So it's just something worth thinking about if we're going to move forward on this.
That said, I mean, I think that, I would want them to know is that, I mean, that'd just be my thinking, and I'm sure that Anna doesn't disagree with that idea. Is that our place to do? Is that something we can do or should do?
I think you get to decide the answers to all those questions, Michael.
Oh, great. I'm glad I asked them. Okay. Kelly, do you have a thought?
Well, I'm wondering if, I mean, it's current property owners. Obviously, somebody could sell it someday, but can we send, I hate to push this off a month, but it's maybe an option. Can we send a letter to current property owners telling them just that and asking their thoughts, because it may be a consideration down the line if they were to go sell. I mean, I don't see any big industry coming into either of those two areas. They're just not large enough for it. But I guess, yeah, they probably should be made aware and understand the implications of what it is. I don't want to impede anybody in this situation, be it Anna or Hamilton Habitat at this time, or anybody else that would I want to infringe upon their rights if they go to sell properties 2 years from now and we've really screwed it up for them.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't want to. I mean, I'm so excited about the project. I just wouldn't want to start off with any bad blood. Anna, will that be putting you back?
Well,
We'll be putting you back, yes.
of course it would. My only question, and I certainly understand your concern, is a letter was sent out to all those property owners, regardless of what their zoning was. If they had a concern, would it not be their responsibility to have asked somebody? Well, how does that affect me? How does that affect me? How does that affect my zoning? Because it's such a small town and I work at a lumber store, I've talked to both people on both sides of me, not about that, because I wasn't even aware of that being, maybe a concern. But I just, I guess I have an opinion about that, and I don't necessarily agree that it's your responsibility as the city zoning board to get in touch with the surrounding neighbors to tell them how that may or may not affect them in the future. Do you do that in every other situation when somebody's looking for rezoning? Just asking.
I am just trying to remember the last time we rezoned in this way, but I don't recall, Mike.
You're not going to find an example like this. This is a pretty specific situation where somebody's looking for an opportunity to do something that we've said we really want done, and it's hard to find a spot to do it in. And so if there was an easy ask, she would have already probably brought it to us. The last rezoning we did was just a more procedural thing. Probably the last 3 or 4 that we've done actually have been more procedural things. And there hasn't been one where we've said this commercial property really needs to be used residential. I actually expect that to happen more often. So I think it's a good thing that we're talking about this and how you want to handle it, because I can think of a dozen other places that are zoned CI right now that would be great fits for residential development, and that, you know, might be the next one to talk about, you know, with Anna or somebody else.
Yeah, and indeed, you know, the more that I was looking at the map, the more I thought, you know, residential is really what we need, and we have a lot of space that we have cut off that I don't know. I don't expect it to be used how we thought it was going to be used, or at least how we zoned it to be used. And we have so much need right now. But yes, in terms of the process, I hear what you're saying, Anna, in terms of like whose responsibility is it? And if I knew the neighbors better, I'd feel a little bit better, you know, because I'd know kind of who they are and where they're at and what they're doing. But I don't. I don't know. I would hate to set up a process that isn't trying to be as forthcoming as possible. And you're right. It isn't. They should have, you know, had. You're not wrong in that, you know, when they get a letter from the city saying, "Hey, we're going to do this thing," they should maybe ask about it.
Well, I think that the letter that goes out, it isn't. I mean, I think it's fair to say we were all very, very excited and enthusiastic about this prior to knowing that we were now going to change their setback requirements on their properties.
Right.
So I don't think that letter that was sent out it would not have occurred to them that now their property is changing.
Right.
And I think that they need to know that and have a chance to respond directly to that.
I guess I'm comfortable with that, in that I kind of know how everything's situated both to the east and the west. You know, the west is an old street. So, you know, who owns that old street, right? You know, in between Fine Finish and the property we're talking about. And then to the east is Eliason, and there's a building almost the whole length of that property line so there's, you know, an existing building. So it's your call. Your call.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I guess what I'm getting. Oh, Stacy, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, I did consider the fact that we're making residential next to commercial. And I think this kind of points out our little housing ordinance revising. We do have more things to think about and work on. So here we go. And then I'm driving around other places. One of the concerns that I have is I have no problem residential and commercial being next to each other. I don't have a problem with that. My concern is that lots of people move into a residential area knowing it's in a commercial district and then complain about the noise and all that. So that I did have that concern. But I really think those other three property owners and those setbacks, those setbacks might change anyway if we continue to work on what we need to work on as a city. And in the meantime, most likely nothing's going to be happening soon. And whether it's 50 feet or 40 feet or 35 feet, whatever we may decide is appropriate at some time, that can be handled through a conditional use permit right now. So I don't see this as a big hang up for stopping this project.
Okay, very good. All right. Any other thoughts, Commissioner Swearingen?
I'm just thinking, I wish we would have known this beforehand. It's so hard to understand them all and know everything. I mean, we get our packets Friday, and there's no way I would be reading. There's no way I have time to read through everything and understand what it is I'm excited about or not excited about. I guess that's my issue, but that's something that we all need to educate ourselves on then and figure out. I don't see where any large, again, I don't know how we define large, but large commercial use other than maybe the Eliason property. And I guess, you know, they have been sent, like we stated, they got the letters. but I don't see where really large, noisy things are going to fit in that area. I'm kind of inclined to go forward. And I agree with Stacy, you know, if there's an issue about the 50-foot setback, they can come for a conditional use permit. You know, and maybe that's something that Anna needs to let her people know, that if they're going to buy in there, you know, you have to understand you're next to a commercial property, and maybe they need to be aware of what setbacks are, which is on the city website. But that's, you know, I guess if I have a responsibility to read my packet and understand everything and look into stuff, then so do property owners. And I guess we all have to kind of work together a bit and compromise there. So I'm kind of inclined to go forward with this.
As an option for going forward, and yet still trying to respect the idea of having a more complete conversation with the neighbors, you could make your recommendation to move forward contingent on us successfully having that conversation before the council meeting next Wednesday, and I will make every effort to do it. And then the council can decide how to deal with whatever comments the neighbors make on it. That's one way to keep the process moving. I mean, there's obvious risk involved in that. If the neighbors come forward and say this is a terrible idea, you know, the council's been put in a tough spot. And but you know, they're very capable people. I think they can handle it. So I think that issue would work for you. Yeah, especially with half the council sitting in this room. The other thought is, you know, we really have a very abbreviated review process for most of these types of issues compared to, say, a larger, more complex community, and it works for us 90% of the time. But every once in a while, there's one of these that actually is a little bit tricky and is worth taking a little extra time with. So, yeah, it'd be nice if we could have nailed this one in a week. But we tell people when they make these applications to expect it to take 6 to 8 weeks. And the idea is that every once in a while, we do need to come back to the Planning Commission a month later and deal with some issues that were brought up at the meeting and do some more research and do some more thinking. So, you know, that if that is the worst outcome that comes of this, it's not a terrible one. We can still make it happen. But like I said, if you want us to move forward and try to reach out and talk to these neighbors in the next week, I think we can do that.
Well,
So
I think I would be most inclined to do that. I just feel really strongly that trying to reach out, and I get that we should all read our packets and they should read their letters. I just feel like I want this to, I'm so behind it. I want to make sure that we hit it right. And I don't want to have anybody getting upset. And we're going to have to probably do this again, other place. So it'd be good to just, and especially if we're talking a week, 10 days, you know, I think we can see through to that, I would say. That would just be my 2 cents. But Kelly, you were going to say something.
I'm looking right now on the county tax parcel finder at the properties. And I'm sure, Mike, what is the setbacks, Mike, on commercial to commercial? Because I'm looking at the property to the east and it is pretty tight to the county imaginary lines that they place. So I was just curious what those setbacks are.
Yeah, I measured that at about 15 to 18 feet, depending on where that line is. And our setback in that zone for the commercial use is 10 on the front and 15 on the sides. So that one complies. And then on the other side, I measure it more like 20 feet or so away. So I think they're both legal, conforming with our ordinance right now. And they would both be legal but non-conforming if we made this change.
So then, I don't know if Anna's looked at it. I'm wondering how the 4 houses would be placed in that area and how close they would be to those buildings.
Well, to the west, they wouldn't be, because that's really a vacant lot. Actually, they tried to sell it to me, but at the time I wanted to buy it, I was told that it probably wouldn't never get rezoned residential. Just saying. And the east side, I don't know how close. You know, I'm pending a survey, and I'm not wanting to spend that $2,000 until I know that, you know, I mean, everything kind of has its place, I don't want to actually have the survey. I don't know exactly where the property line is. So it's hard to tell. You know, there's no pins, there's no, and to the west, supposedly there's a street, old street or alley, I believe street, in between, I think Charlie told me that, in between myself and Fine Finish, an abandoned one or a closed one or something.
Well, it's vacated, Anna. It's actually attached. It's a half street right away attached to their property now.
Okay. So yeah, okay. So anyway, I don't believe there's any buildings. There would be no interference to the west for sure. The east is a question mark about how close a building would be to Eliason's building, because I really don't know where that line is.
Yeah.
And when you think about 4 single-family homes, this lot is 130 and change wide. So you're going to end up with a driveway easement down the middle. You know, it'll be it won't be a street. There won't be a public street in the middle of this, I don't believe.
No.
And so when you look at, say, if you just cut it in 4, you know, the cardinal direction 4 pieces, those south half ones will not have public street access other than on this driveway easement, and that's going to require special permission. They're going to be, which we've granted before, so I don't think that's an obstacle. That they're going to be 65 feet wide, and there'll be a 20-foot wide building on them. So and you know, that 65 feet wide includes the driveway easement. So there'll definitely be some setback considerations, like what's the front and back and side yard. Also, when you're talking about those interior lots that don't abut the street, the ones on top, you know, those street right away will be a 25-foot setback. But you'd think that it would be, you'd want to see that 25-foot setback on the east and west lines for the interior lots. And now you've got 50 feet of setback on a 65-foot lot. So orienting the homes with a central driveway and 4 lots, there's plenty of room for it, right? It'll be pretty roomy for 4 nice sized lots. But in terms of laying it out so that it complies with our setbacks, it's going to be a real challenge, and I expect it's going to take some variances to do that.
Well, and even to the south, because the current Viking plumbing building, that would stay commercial. Is that correct? That property, right? So then we're talking about some setbacks there as well. So, yeah, I don't know. I think we're giving you more work and more headache, Anna. I feel
It doesn't surprise me. I just, I don't know what to say.
I know it.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
you know, our residential zoning, particularly with the new rules, would support a different style than what you like to do, Anna. They're a lot easier. You know, a cottage courtyard development, for instance, this is exactly what that would be. And if they were not sold but rented, then it would fit our ordinance to a T. But that's not what you want to do. You know, if it was a small apartment building or even a large apartment building or a row house or something like that could be sold separately, you could find a way to make that fit the ordinance. But again, that's not what you want to do. So
I can't do it affordably. That's the whole problem.
Yeah, and you know, we don't want to try and get in the way of what's working for you, because like I said, you're a #1 housing developer right now. So, but this is a tough fit on this property.
Sarah is in the shadows here laughing. No, I know you're not trying. I know I have the support and I appreciate it. I want it to be right though too. You know, I certainly understand that we need to make sure we know what we're doing, all of us. So,
yeah.
You know, Sarah and I walked it a number of times, and the layout there, you know, there's a lot to consider. I'm not a builder. I don't care what I'm doing. I'm really not a builder. And so, you know, knowing which way you want your windows to face. Whoever thought of that? I never thought of that, but now I got to think of that. So when you look at a narrow, I think it's only 120 feet wide, but I won't know till the survey, that lot, and then it goes 320 deep. You know, and these houses are 16 by 40. We were thinking that at first having them north and south. Well, you know, again, until we have a survey, we don't know where those lines are going to go. We don't know if we're going to how we can do it. We don't know until we have a survey, and we're not going to have a survey till we know we can get zoning, and it's just nuts. So whatever, we're all trying. I don't know what the answer is.
Right. Well, I think, commissioners, I would propose that, again, just giving ourselves a little bit of room here to contact those owners, just, giving it that week, knowing that, Kelly and I will be looking at this hopefully next week, and they'll have had their moment to respond. And if they don't, well, then we know where we're at, because I feel like we're all pretty much behind it, and it's really up to Anna to figure out how it works. And we're just doing the zoning piece. So I feel like that's what I would propose that we do, is to say, yes, but let's do this letter as well, or try and contact them, Mike and Patrick. So does that sound like that would work, Kelly? Excuse me.
Do we need to make a motion then for that, Mike? Something of that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll have to
so
do our findings first and say that this is how it can change, but we're also going to say, before we go forward, we also want to have made contact with those owners.
okay.
Yeah.
So I will make a motion to approve this contingent upon a contact with adjacent property owners.
Yeah.
For understanding of setback issues, and then to be verified by city council at our next meeting, which
Correct.
would be next Wednesday, the 12th.
Yeah, there you go. Well, and we do have to do our findings first, just to be doing things properly. So when we're looking at the things we needed to consider, obviously, we know that in our, the comprehensive plan that was adopted, was adopted a while ago. But within that, it's very clear that affordable housing is something that was important at that time, and of course has become ever more important. So that's something that's making that first point work. There has been substantial changes, as we know, within our community. That's why we're talking about, well, we've got this commercial area. We want to switch it into R1 because we know that we need housing. We need housing for all of our businesses that are here and hopefully thriving. And let's see, what's the next one? Yeah, and that this will be a net benefit for the overall community, rezoning this. And what about beyond? And then, and there's definitely a public need for that rezoning to take place. So having those findings, is that sufficient, Mr. Roth? Or am I missing something?
Well, those questions get harder and harder as you go down, and this isn't a down zone, so you get to skip that one. But the last number 4, beyond the public need being evident, there should be a showing that the public interest is best served by rezoning the property in question rather than other property in the community. And I think that's the trickiest one to really dig into and answer. And it's always a tough one because, of course, no one's talking about any other properties. No one's actually got a proposal on the table to do anything with any other properties. Well, so how do we actually compare this to other properties? And that's still what the charge is, to say that this one, even though it's creating issues with setbacks with the neighbors, even though it's skinny and might be difficult to, will require variances, this is still the right one to rezone rather than another one.
Yeah, and I think to address that, I mean, we have had, up in the business park, people looking to do this type of thing, to have housing up there. And I would say that this, because as we know, I mean, there's housing right across the way from this property already. And in my mind, it's a much better spot to be in than up in the business park. And we just have had pressure up there. But you're right, I can't say to my mind, it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. And there might be a better one, but this one is still hitting all the marks in my estimation. But I would
Yeah, the
entertain-
question though says that this is the best one. So when you qualify, there may be a better one. That's the tricky part, right? We have to
Okay.
say, nope, there isn't a better one. This is the best one.
I will say that this one is the best one because this one actually has somebody proposing it and putting it forward. That makes it the best one.
Yeah, that's usually how we answer that too. And it's just, it's a really hard question to dig into, with a broad citywide appraisal of our properties and say, if we were going to forget about having a proposal, if we were going to rezone any of our commercial properties to residential, what would the criteria be that would make it suitable? And you don't have to finish answering that question. You just have to come up with a finding that works for you and the council. But I think as a question that you keep in the back of your head, it's worth noodling on still because it's going to come up again.
Yeah.
So some things, for instance, about this property that do make it suitable is it's on County Road 7 and close to schools and close to facilities. It's walkable to schools and to downtown, although I think County Road 7 on this site could use some help in that way.
Mm-hmm.
It is adjacent to existing commercial uses, but those commercial uses are fairly well defined. It's not like it's a big vacant commercial lot that you don't know what's going to show up. So I think there are some things about it that do make it work in this request.
Well, Jim Matson's just got on.
Good. I was thinking we might need to ask him too, even though it seems kind of clear that he's for it because he's going to propose to sell you the property knowing what you want to do with it. But Jim, one of the things that our zoning ordinance does is imposes a 50-foot setback on commercial properties that are adjacent to residential properties. And so there would be a 50-foot setback on your north lot line if this rezoning was done. And I'm not sure if that's clear to the neighbors. So one of the things that we were doing here is reaching out to the 3 neighboring commercial properties and making sure they know that, and then allowing them an opportunity to comment on it if they have any. And you're muted, but it looks like you don't have any comment.
Jim, if you move there you go.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's good with you?
Well, I don't have much choice, do I?
You do have a choice.
You can say
Well, how do I? You said it was 50 foot. It's 50 foot. Do I have a choice?
Well, you could decide to sell her 300 feet instead of 320. You could decide not to sell her the property. You could decide to be opposed to the rezoning. Yeah, you have choices.
If I want the sale to go through, it's going to have to be the 50 foot the way it sounds to me.
okay. All right. So you are okay with that then, Jim? I'm taking it?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. Commissioners, then I would say that we go ahead and send out those letters to the neighbors, make sure everybody's good, and Councilor Swearingen, we'll see it next week, next Wednesday. Have a look-see at that. And I guess we'll need a motion for this. So I would entertain that at this point.
Okay, I'm gonna try this again.
All right.
I make a motion that we approve contingent upon the city reaching out to the adjacent property owners for understanding of the setbacks, and then final approval to be made by city council at their May 12th meeting.
Second.
All right, I will call the roll. Mr. Peters
Aye.
and Stacy
Aye.
and Kelly.
Aye.
I'm also an aye. And that request passes contingent upon the letters going out and our meeting next Tuesday.
I'm sure we're not going to use letters, Michael.
Oh, wow.
There's no chance that'll work in a week's time. So we will try to make direct contact with folks.
Great.
And we will update Ben and Stacy, both of you, on what we hear, as well as including it in the council packet.
Great. All right. Well, I guess, commissioners, we are towards the end of our time. There's nothing else on our agenda except for to adjourn. Oh, wait. Stacy.
Well, we do have new business. Actually,
I think we're done, Jim. We're done here, right?
Yep.
Yeah, good luck, Anna.
I'll
Yeah,
call you.
thanks, Anna.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
I'll call you, Jim.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks for showing up.
Right.
and actually, I don't have a new business item, but I just wanted to talk about how we distribute information. I know I brought this up before, but when we have these kind of public hearings that we are going to be discussing and considering, I would really appreciate advance notice. It's rather embarrassing to find out through the public what's on the public or the planning commission's meeting, and then I read it in the paper. So I knew these were on our agenda only because I read the paper first. And I just would like, when we send out these letters to adjacent property owners, to let them know, to have it input, that it goes to all commissioners at the very same time, regardless if we live in that area or not. Just so that if we are contacted or there are any questions that somebody may ask us, we do not look like we don't know what we're doing. So that's my request. And thinking of that in our discussion about the letters that go out. And if there is a change to the neighboring property owner, maybe we can just put a little asterisk, please call if you don't know how this may affect you. I don't know. I just want to make sure we're more upfront.
Yeah, I appreciate that sentiment. And most of the time, of course, we're not going to run into an issue like this. I don't think there's any written communication that we can do that's going to be successful in what we're trying to do here now. We could have sent certified mail 3 weeks ago to the neighbors that says, in big bold print, your property rights are being affected, and we still may not hear from them. This is how people respond to different things. And so this is probably the right way to do it for us, is to actually reach out on our own and try to have a conversation with folks and make sure they understand what's going on. But it's not very often where I think we're going to have a situation like this. It's a lot different in my mind than the neighbors, where there's a deck being built, where we don't really understand what the changes are to the neighbor's life experience. And so we can't call them up and say, here's what's going to happen and we want you to know about it, because we don't really know, like, what's your view like out of your window, and which direction do you even look, or where do you park your neighbor's park. So there really is still a lot of personal responsibility that folks have to do to respond to some of that. But in this case, there's no realistic way for a person, I don't think, to understand what change is going to happen, because nobody's an expert on the zoning ordinance except for people who are forced to read it for 20 years. And so let's you've talked before, Stacy, about wanting to get the applications earlier. We don't always have them a lot earlier. I think we can buy you at most another week.
I guess I'd be okay with that. I would just like to get notified the same time the rest of the public gets notified.
Yeah, well, that's easy enough, and we can certainly do that for future. When we mail these notices out, we'll email them to you as well. Something to keep in mind when we do these public hearings, it's great that you all like to do your homework beforehand and look at the properties and think about the properties, but there's actually a real keeping an open mind about what's going on to need that might be difficult when people are contacting you beforehand and trying to sway your judgment individually on an issue. So preparing some sort of response to allow you to listen to them and gather that information without feeling an obligation to explain anything to them or understand what's going on yet. There shouldn't be an expectation that you understand what's going on until this meeting has occurred and you've had a chance to hear from anybody who might have had a comment. So something to think about how you might talk to folks that are contacting you early as well.
Well, and I always think it's good. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong that we ever listen to people. Someone can come and express. I can say, I haven't seen my agenda yet. I'm willing to listen to what you want to tell me, but I don't have everything in front of me. That, again, sometimes like I said, the Friday to today, or the window seems very short, especially when we all have very busy lives for whatever the different things are going on. That window is very small. And that's part of being a public servant and also being of the working age and somebody else's employee and a daughter and a mother and a sister and all the other things that go with it, brother. But I find that sometimes it's just easy to tell people, share your thoughts with me. I'd like to hear it, but my decision will be made typically on this day, because I look forward to coming here as well and listening to all of you and your thoughts about things, because that's how I learn things. I'm not the smartest person on the earth. I don't know everything, and I suspect everyone else here doesn't know everything. So when we all work together, we get a much better outcome, hopefully, for everyone involved. We all know we're not going to make everybody happy, but we certainly can always listen respectfully to what people want to share with us. And that's what I try and do. And I tell them to, watch what, if they'd like to, and see what our conversation is and hear what we go through and discuss. And that kind of works. Depends upon the person.
Yeah, thanks.
And our process errs on the side of going fast, like I talked about before. I mean, we can go through a variance where it's 3 weeks between when somebody applied and when the council approves it. And there is, I think we want to go as fast as we can to not get in front of or hold up people's projects. But if it's too fast for us to be effective, then we can add time in between when we require an application in and when it's going to be in front of you. Right now, the only time requirement we have is that we need to be able to publish notice 10 days before the meeting. So that's something for you all to think about too. If we start emailing you those notices and it still is not enough time, then we can talk about this some more.
Very good. All right. Any other new business? Okay. Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Sargent. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Excellent. Well, thank you all. It was a good round this time, and